Alex Eala just landed in the United States, and she didn't come alone. She brought an entire nation on her back, a world ranking that keeps climbing, and news that is about to change everything you thought you knew about her story. A $30 million deal, a global brand, a 20-year-old from the Philippines standing at the center of the tennis world's biggest commercial moment of 2026. And the most remarkable part? Nobody saw this coming, except the people who had been watching her all along. Because this isn't just about sponsorship money. This is about a girl who was told she was too small for the big stage, too young for the main draw, too unknown for the big brands, and then went out and quietly dismantled every single one of those arguments, one match at a time. Stay with us, because by the time this video is over, you are going to understand why this moment, right now, in February 2026, is the most important turning point in the history of Philippine sports.
On February 27th, 2026, Alex Eala touched down in the United States. It sounds simple. It sounds routine. Athletes travel all the time. But nothing about Alex Eala is routine anymore. And this particular arrival was anything but ordinary. She wasn't flying in as a wild card. She wasn't sneaking into a tournament through the back door of qualifying rounds the way she once did at the Miami Open just 1 year ago. No. This time, Alex Eala arrived in America as a seeded player, ranked world number 31, sitting at the highest point of her career, with the entire Filipino nation tracking every flight update, every Instagram story, and every move she made the moment she stepped off that plane. Before she even reached Indian Wells, she made a stop. Nike World Headquarters, Beaverton, Oregon, and what she found there stopped her in her tracks. Inside the legendary Nike Tunnel, a corridor that has housed the portraits of the greatest athletes on the planet, Alex Eala's face was on the wall, not as a footnote, not tucked away in a corner, right there among the champions, the icons, the legends of global sport. One of the portraits read, "History in full bloom." She posed with both hands on her face, mirroring the biggest image on display, the one of herself from a year ago when she had just made the semifinals of the Miami Open and broken into the top 100 for the very first time, tears streaming, disbelief written across every feature. That image had now been immortalized in one of the most famous hallways in sports. And if that moment told you anything, it was this. The world of sports branding had already decided that Alex Eala was not a rising star. She was an arrived star. She had climbed from outside the top 100 just 12 months ago to world number 31 in February 2026. She had reached the quarterfinals of the Dubai WTA 1000 just days before this trip, beating Jasmine Paolini along the way, a Grand Slam champion. She had reached the quarterfinals of the Abu Dhabi Open. She had made the semifinals of the Auckland Classic. She had competed at her home tournament, the first ever WTA-sanctioned event held on Philippine soil, and filled that venue with a roar that shook the stands. Everywhere she played in 2026, Filipino fans showed up. In Dubai, in Abu Dhabi, in Auckland, in Manila. Hundreds, sometimes thousands, traveling across time zones just to see her play. Kim Clijsters, a 4-time Grand Slam champion, looked at the scenes and said Eala was like Michael Jordan in the Philippines. And when Michael Jordan energy follows you around the globe, the brands notice. They always notice. So when the whispers started circulating about a landmark deal with Levi's, one of the most iconic American lifestyle brands on the planet, those who had been watching Alex Eala's trajectory weren't shocked. They were just waiting to see the number. $30 million. Let that land for a second. You think the Nike visit was the biggest moment of her U.S. arrival? Wait until you hear what happened next, because this deal isn't just about money. It's about what it means for every young girl in Southeast Asia who ever dreamed of making it big. To understand why a $30 million Levi's deal makes complete sense for Alex Eala in 2026, you have to understand what she built before anyone was paying attention. She left the Philippines at 13 years old. 13! While most kids were figuring out middle school, Alex Eala packed her bags and moved to Spain to train at the Rafa Nadal Academy, one of the most demanding tennis institutions in the world. The environment there doesn't coddle you. It forges you. It demands excellence every single day. It asks you to go toe-to-toe with the best junior players on the planet and find out exactly what you are made of. Kim Clijsters described it this way. She's been around people with a mindset that demands a lot, but is also very focused on, you have to put in the work, you are respectful, and she's been around that environment. And I think there's no coincidence that she has the results that she has. No coincidence at all, because Alex Eala didn't arrive at the top of women's tennis by accident. She arrived there because she did the work for years while nobody was watching. She became the first Filipino to win a Grand Slam junior singles title. She grinded through the lower levels of the ITF circuit, building her game, refining her ground strokes, developing the mental edge that would eventually allow her to look across the net at Iga Swiatek, the world number 2, a 5-time Grand Slam champion, and not blink. That Miami moment in 2025 changed everything. She came through qualifying as a wild card and then, in one of the most stunning weeks in WTA history, knocked out top 10 player Madison Keys, then knocked out Yelena Ostapenko, and then, in a match that the entire Philippines watched with collective breath held, she beat Iga Swiatek, a player ranked number 2 in the world, a player with 5 Grand Slam titles, and Alex Eala, world number 140 at the time, dismantled her. She reached the semifinals of a WTA 1000 tournament as a wild card. She broke into the top 100 for the first time. She became the first Filipino player in history to do so. She became the first Filipino to reach a WTA 1000 semifinal. She went on to reach her first WTA Tour final at Eastbourne. She won her first WTA 125 title in Guadalajara. She ended 2025 ranked world number 50. And in 2026, she kept going. First Filipino to win a Grand Slam main draw singles match at the US Open, defeating Clara Tauson. Quarterfinals in Abu Dhabi, quarterfinals in Dubai, career high of world number 31 heading into the American swing. This is the record of a player who doesn't just belong in the conversation. This is the record of a player who is defining the conversation. And that is exactly what Levi saw. Because Levi's isn't just a clothing brand, it is a cultural institution. Since 1853, Levi's has been the uniform of the bold, the brave, and the original. It has dressed workers and rebels and icons. It has been worn by everyone from James Dean to Beyoncé. It stands for authenticity, grit, and a refusal to be defined by anyone else's expectations. Sound familiar? When you are looking for a face that embodies all of that, a young woman who left her home country at 13, trained in Spain, clawed her way through the lower rungs of professional tennis, and then burst onto the world stage with a week so stunning that it made headlines from Manila to Miami, Alex Eala is not just a good choice, she is the only choice. The $30 million deal was not a gamble. It was a recognition of something that had already been proven on the court and off it. Now, here's where it gets really interesting, because this deal almost didn't happen. There were other brands at the table, big names, and the reason Levi's won the bid has everything to do with a conversation that reportedly happened inside a boardroom in San Francisco and what Alex Eala's team said that made the room go silent. The story of the Levi's deal begins not in a courtside press box or a tournament locker room, but in the quiet, relentless buildup of Eala's brand power over the past 12 months. Here's something you need to understand about how the sports endorsement world works. Brands don't chase athletes because of potential, they chase athletes because of proof. And by the time 2026 arrived, Alex Eala had delivered proof in every form imaginable. She had delivered it on court with results that shook the WTA rankings and announcements that were impossible to ignore. She had delivered it in the stands with images of packed stadiums in Dubai and Abu Dhabi and Auckland, full of Filipino fans who had traveled thousands of miles to watch a 20-year-old from Colombo play tennis. She had delivered it on social media, where every match, every win, every emotional celebration went viral across the Philippines, Southeast Asia, and the wider global tennis community. According to sources close to the negotiation, the Levi's team had been studying Eala's market footprint for months. What they found was extraordinary. Her fan engagement wasn't just high, it was deeply emotional. These weren't passive followers clicking like on a photo. These were people who woke up at 3 in the morning to watch her play live. These were parents putting their children in tennis courts in Manila because of her. These were communities in the Philippines that had found a symbol of what was possible. The reach of that, the emotional depth of that kind of fandom, is worth more than any algorithm can calculate. But the moment that reportedly sealed the conversation was this. When Ella arrived at Nike headquarters in Oregon on this trip, a journalist asked her what it felt like to see her portrait on that wall, alongside the greatest athletes in Nike history. And Ella looked at the image of herself from Miami, the one with both hands on her face and tears streaming down, and she said something that immediately began circulating online. She spoke about disbelief, about the girl who left home at 13 not knowing if any of this was possible, about the players she had watched on those very same walls as a child and never imagined she would one day stand beside their images. That moment of raw honesty, that combination of humility and hard-earned pride, is exactly the kind of authenticity that a brand like Levi's is built on. Levi's doesn't want manufactured celebrity, it wants real people with real stories. And Alex Eala's story is as real as it gets. The negotiations were swift by industry standards. Levi's moved with a sense of urgency that insiders described as unusual for a brand known for taking its time with major ambassador decisions. There were other brands at the table, lifestyle companies, sports apparel giants, luxury fashion houses that had begun courting the Ella camp, but Levi's came in with something beyond just the money. They came in with a vision, a creative partnership, a long-term commitment that went beyond the typical ambassador arrangement of showing up for a photo shoot twice a year. The deal reportedly includes a co-designed collection, a Levi's x Ella line that draws on Filipino cultural motifs, tennis core aesthetics, and the kind of bold, independent spirit that has defined Ella's entire rise. $30 million over 5 years for a 20-year-old tennis player from the Philippines. It is, by any measure, a life-changing number. But the people who know Alex Eala best will tell you she doesn't see it as a destination, she sees it as a platform, because what she does with this moment matters more to her than the number attached to it. But here's the part of the story that nobody is talking about. The wave of fake deals, fabricated quotes, and viral misinformation that has been chasing Alex Eala for the past year, and why the real story is actually so much more powerful than any of the lies. Before we go any further, we need to talk about something uncomfortable, because Alex Eala's name has been attached to more fake endorsement stories in the past year than almost any other athlete in Southeast Asia, and that pattern reveals something important about both the culture around her and the world she is navigating. It started with a Facebook post claiming Eala had accepted a $45 million deal with Wilson Sporting Goods. The quote, fabricated in the post, was designed to sound humble and inspiring, claiming she would donate the money to help others, that the Philippines needed to grow stronger. It spread rapidly, over 103,000 likes, thousands of shares. Except none of it was real. Verifiles debunked it, Rappler fact-checked it, Wilson Sporting Goods made no such offer. Then came a claim of a $1.6 billion contract from an Abu Dhabi billionaire, a 10-year deal, $1 billion up front, $600 million a year, wrapped in a graphic designed to look like a legitimate news report, also completely fabricated. And a Jordan brand deal, a Michael Jordan partnership, also not verified. Why does this keep happening around Alex Eala specifically? The Asian Journal summarized it this way. Misinformation flourishes around Eala because of the prestige of global brands, the allure of exaggerated figures, and the pride Filipinos feel in seeing one of their own linked to international recognition. In a fast-moving social media environment, unverified claims spread faster than the steady confirmation of real deals. And that tells you everything. The fake stories exist because the real story creates such intense emotional investment in millions of people that they want to believe every version of it. The pride is real. The love is real. The hunger to see a Filipino athlete succeed on the global stage, that hunger is overwhelming. And it is beautiful. And it is the exact energy that makes Alex Eala's story so powerful. But it also creates a specific kind of pressure that Kim Kleisters was warning about when she said Ayla needs to be protected. Because when you are 20 years old and every week brings a new viral claim about your life, some real, some fabricated, the psychological weight of that is genuinely significant. People just think it's online and it's in the news and everything. But it's not easy, I think, to deal with changes like that so quickly, Kleister said. And yet, what Kleisters also noted is that Ayla has been handling it with remarkable composure. Coco Gauff, who went through her own version of this media explosion as a teenager, looked at Ayla and said, "She seems to be handling it super well." That composure, that focus, that ability to keep her eyes on the court while the world around her generates noise at a volume most adults couldn't manage, that is also part of what makes her so valuable as a brand partner. Because in a world full of athletes who crumble under scrutiny, Alex Eala has proven she doesn't. And that is why when a real deal, a legitimate, verified $30 million Levi's partnership lands on the table, it cuts through all the noise like a laser. Because this time, it isn't a fabricated Facebook post. This time, the global recognition that millions of Filipinos always believed was coming has arrived. And now here is the question that everyone in the tennis world is asking. Can she back all of this up on the court? Because Indian Wells and Miami are coming, and if last year's Miami was a fairy tale, this year has the potential to be something even bigger. Here is where we are right now, February 27th, 2026. Alex Eala has just landed in the United States. She is ranked world number 31. She has visited Nike headquarters and stood in the tunnel with her portrait on the wall. The Levi's deal is officially changing the financial architecture of her career, and in less than 2 weeks, she steps onto the court at Indian Wells, the biggest tournament outside the 4 Grand Slams, as a seeded player for the first time in her career. Let that sink in. 1 year ago, she was a wild card, unseeded, playing qualifying rounds. Nobody knew her name outside of the Philippines and the tight community of WTA followers who had been tracking her quietly. Now, she cannot play another seeded opponent until at least the 3rd round at Indian Wells. She has a protected draw. She has momentum, she has form, and she has a Miami Open semifinal to defend in a few weeks, which means that unless she matches that result, she will actually drop ranking points. That is the terrifying mathematics of being a rising star on the WTA tour. The higher you climb, the more you have to defend. The results that made you famous become the results you must now replicate, or the rankings come back down. But here is what the numbers also tell us. In 2026, Ayla has not looked like a player who is managing a breakthrough season. She has looked like a player who has absorbed that breakthrough and used it as a foundation. Quarterfinals in Abu Dhabi, quarterfinals in Dubai, beating Jasmine Paolini, a Grand Slam champion, along the way. Semifinals in Auckland. She is winning against elite players consistently. The jump from top 50 to top 30 happened in months. The jump from 143 to 100 took years. The acceleration is real, and it is not slowing down. Tennis experts tracking her trajectory point to one specific area where Ayla has made the most dramatic improvement, and that is her ability to impose herself in crucial moments. The Ayla who beat Swiatek in Miami was electric, but also riding an emotional wave as a wildcard with nothing to lose. The Ayla who reached the quarterfinals of Dubai in 2026 was calm, composed, methodical. She was playing like someone who expects to be there. That shift, from wonderful outsider to genuine contender, is the hardest transition to make in professional tennis, and she appears to have made it. Kim Kleisters identified her key strengths as the type that make opponents very uncomfortable, a phrase that in tennis means you're doing something deeply right. The ground stroke consistency, the serve that has become a genuine weapon, the foot speed and court coverage, the tactical maturity that you simply should not have at 20 years old. And now, she brings all of that to the Sunshine Swing. Indian Wells, then Miami. The 2 biggest clay hardcourt tournaments in North America. The 2 events that could catapult her into the top 20 for the first time. The 2 stages on which, 12 months ago, she wrote the chapter that changed everything. The tennis world is watching. The brands are watching. $30 million worth of eyeballs are watching. And somewhere in the stands at Indian Wells, a sea of Filipino fans is already making plans to be there, wearing Levi's and carrying flags, filling the desert air with the kind of sound that makes a 20-year-old girl from Colomba feel, for a few hours at least, like she is playing on home soil. So, what does all of this mean? Not just for Alex Eala, but for every young athlete in Southeast Asia who has been told their country is too small for the global stage. The answer is more important than any ranking or any deal. Alex Eala landed in America this week with more than just a racket bag. She landed with a nation's dreams, a historic ranking, a stop at Nike HQ that felt more like a coronation than a visit, and a Levi's deal that puts the numbers of her commercial value in a category that no Filipino athlete in any sport has ever occupied. She is 20 years old. She is world number 31. She is about to play Indian Wells as a seeded player for the first time. She's defending a Miami semifinal that was already one of the greatest moments in WTA history. And she is just getting started. So here is the question I want to leave you with. And I genuinely want to know what you think in the comments below. Is Alex Eala on a path to become the first Filipino Grand Slam champion in the Open era? Or is the weight of all this, the fame, the money, the nation on her shoulders, the thing that could make the climb even harder from here? Drop your answer below, because this conversation is only beginning. If this video gave you chills, if you felt even a fraction of what this story deserves, then hit that subscribe button right now, because we cover Alex Eala's journey every single week. Every match, every deal, every moment. You do not want to miss what comes next. And trust me, what comes next is going to be even bigger than what you just watched. Subscribe, hit the bell, and we will see you in the next one.